from Anupam and Piyush. So Anupam is holding 11 plus years of experience precisely in cloud technologies and various DevOps tool chains. And Piyush is an IT professional, explored the areas of AWS, cloud, and various DevOps tools along with system administrations in Linux, shell scripting, and comprehensive knowledge of Oracle database 11G. So Anupam and Piyush would be speaking on chaos engineering break it to make it. So I would ask Piyush and Anupam to take it up. Piyush and Anupam, you guys there?
Thanks,
Yes,
Karthik.
Karthik. Thank
Yeah.
you.
Let me share my screen.
Uh, Piyush, your screen, you are not visible.
Okay. Let me try again. Am I visible now?
Yep, you are visible now. Thank you.
Okay, that's fine. Okay, let me know once you're able to see my screen.
Yes, it's visible.
Okay.
Thank
Anupam,
you,
you can
Karthik,
start.
for the brief introduction for both of us. Hi, everyone. Good evening. Thank you, everyone, for joining in today on this session on chaos engineering. I hope when we leave this room after 30 minutes, we have some more information on what chaos engineering is. In this session, we'll be giving you a walkthrough on what is chaos engineering and what are the different aspects of chaos engineering. So as Karthik already introduced both of us, your speakers for today would be me and Piyush. Over to you, Piyush.
So in this session, what we'll be covering in today's session is we'll first go through the concepts of chaos engineering, then we'll understand why do we need chaos engineering, followed by how it actually differs from the normal testing. And then we'll talk about how organizations can kickstart their journey with respect to chaos engineering itself. And at the end, we'll be showcasing a brief demo on how to run chaos attacks on the live environments itself. So let's start with some of the common problem areas first, which most of the organizations are facing these days. So according to a survey report published by a DSO community, 24% of organizations confirmed or suspected breaches tied to their applications, to their complete infrastructure, and they are still struggling to mitigate them. 86% of organizations are still very immature or in improving state with respect to the environment resilience. 63% of teams have not even incorporated the resilience testing in their design during the initial stages of SDLC lifecycle. And lastly, for around 47% of organizations, traditional testing is still not helping them to find the issues within the ecosystem. So apart from these four issues which we just discussed, there are many other issues like most of the projects or clients are moving towards the microservices architecture, which gets tricky to handle at times. And as our systems are scaling faster than before, so maintaining them is also again a big challenge. So these are some of the main problem areas that most of the organizations are facing these days.
Thanks, Piyush, for highlighting the areas where we have some problems associated with respect to our security, our teams. So there has to be some mechanism which can help us with this preventive measure to resolve the problems that we discussed in our previous slides. So this is where chaos engineering comes into picture. So chaos engineering was a concept that came up. It was introduced by Netflix when they wanted to make sure that their applications, their infrastructure are resilient enough. So by running the chaos experiments on their production environment, in of course a controlled manner, they improved their systems availability by identifying and eliminating the problems before they actually turned into outages. So chaos engineering is something which identifies the most important issues that we have in our ecosystem and how we can assign priority to it. It gives us a platform to combine our functionality, our trust, our behavioral aspects of any system. And as defined, chaos engineering is the science of performing intentional experimentation on a system by injecting very precise and measured amount of harm to observe how our system is responding under those conditions. And like we said, we can never, like we all know that we can never really prevent the errors that lead to such situations. But on the flip side, we can try to minimize the impact to make our systems more resilient. So now that we know basic of what is chaos engineering, let's discuss quickly some of the key areas that chaos engineering primarily focuses on. So it enables us to learn about our existing systems and how we can apply the principle of empirical exploration. So by designing these chaos experiments, we will learn very soon what are the weaknesses of our system that could potentially lead us to any sort of outages and thereby creating revenue loss. So once we have identified these weaknesses in our ecosystem, it will enable the organizations to, in a way, develop more reliable, more fault tolerant systems, and thereby building more confidence in any of the system that we are trying to develop. So it acts as a preventive measure wherein it helps us to learn about our system, prevent outages, and building confidence in our ecosystem like we discussed. Let's talk about the principles that are responsible to drive any chaos engineering experiment. So we discussed what is chaos engineering, what are the primarily factors involved with respect to chaos engineering. So how do we run any chaos engineering experiment? So each experiment that we talk about begins with defining the steady state of the system. So what is a steady state? So we start by pinpointing the metrics in real time that could be a way, the normal behavior of a system, basically how your system was working or the way it should work. So this refers to a normal operation of any application. So the important factors to be considered is basically the SLA of your application or your system when we talk about the steady state. So when we define any steady state for any of our chaos experiment, this is important to consider two important factors, which is your technical matrices and your business matrices. So when we talk about technical matrices, it could be your latency, it could be your number of errors that are thrown over a period of time, what is the average CPU, or what could be the results from a health endpoint if we talk about. Whereas when we talk about any of the business matrices, it could be what is the, let's say, number of failed logins per minute, how many requests are getting declined per second, or how many logins are happening per minute during the peak time or so. So once we have defined the steady state of any system, with any experiment like we proceed, we need to define the hypothesis. So since we are trying to disrupt the usual behavior of any system, we can define two groups. One could be your control group, other one could be your experiment group. So what are these groups? We will discuss in the upcoming slides. So some of the hypotheses that we can consider could be like, let's say your database is fail. Let's say if we have a database failover, then application should continue to function normally, but it should give a friendly message that you can probably try after a couple of minutes. Or when we talk about a DNS failure, or when we are testing the geographical failure, so the application may go down, but it should give some static message or something, or some information with some basic information should be provided to the end users. Or when we talk about the application health check, we should ensure that it is not affected or not impacted throughout the experiment. So using the available tools, there are a couple of tools available in the market. So using any of those tools, we can induce the attacks in our environments. And by injecting failures into different components, that could be your services, it could be your host, or it could be your containers, any event that is capable of disrupting the normal state or the steady state is a potential variable when we talk about in our chaos experiment. So unlike any traditional testing approach that we use, chaos experiments are basically to study the expected outcomes rather than predicting the exact behavior. So for an example, let's say we have an application which is running, right? And we plan to terminate, let's say, 1/3 of the resources, and our application is already it is running in AWS, it have multi-AZ and everything, right? So when we terminate our instances capacity by 1/3, we expect that our auto scaling will spin up those resources and eventually my application will be at its full capacity. But how many of us actually think about that how many in-flight transactions will be affected when we go ahead with this approach? Or what would be the actual customer impact when we form any hypothesis? So when we are defining our experiments or when we are creating any of our hypotheses, it is important that it should be in accordance to our application architecture, and we need to understand what is the actual behavior and we need to address the gaps accordingly. And once our tests are run, we need to collate these results and then we try to elect evidence to support or refute basically whatever we have collected, that this is how our system is going to behave in those conditions by comparing certain matrices, which could be with respect to your control group or your experiment group, and you measure your blast radius. So throughout the testing process, what we do is we take the results, we feed them back into the application design or in the architecture design, and we keep this process repeatedly. We run this process repeatedly, basically, to validate our hypothesis against our steady state of the system before moving all these tests into the production. Last but not the least, we need to continuously learn and improve our ecosystem to ensure that the fallouts from the experiments are minimized and they are contained.
So now we'll talk about how to implement the steps which we discussed in our previous slide. So it would be best to leverage a DevOps strategy that can work in different turbulent conditions that will make our system resilient enough for any kind of breakdowns. And combining it with DevOps not only detects any kind of turbulence effectively, but it also helps in fixing those issues in a very much phased manner. So it's a joint effort wherein the consent of all the system architects, be it related to security, application, infra testing, or maybe the database itself, is needed to ensure a robust resilience framework itself. So in the step one, we'll start with defining the resilience parameter that will be taking into consideration. So these can be at any level, be it an, as it's shown, be it an instance level, facility level, application level, or it could be related to scaling or the security itself. So once we are done with defining the resilience parameter, next step is to define the control groups and the experimental groups as we discussed in the previous slide. So we define the control group and experimental group, and along with it, we define some of the functional and the infrastructure matrices. So think of a control group as a steady state of the system with some of the defined chaos matrices, and think of an experimental group as a system with the similar matrices on which the experiment will be performed. And if we talk about the functional matrices and the infrastructure matrices, as the name suggests, functional matrices are related to functionality of the application. It can be a latency of a system. It can be number of errors, and infra maybe disk utilization, disk consumption, memory consumption, something like that. So this is how we define the resilience strategy. Once we are done with it, next is to execute the resilience strategy above that we discussed above, and DevOps tools and technologies can really help us automate the complete life cycle by setting up the chaos component and the infrastructure itself. Like we can see over here that we can use Ansible, Cucumber, Terraform scripts for setting up the chaos, applications or the setup over the environment. We can push it to GitLab or any of the VCS solution. Then we can use any Jenkins as a CI/CD tool for automation of the continuous experiment. And then we can use a chaos controller that can be any of the chaos tool for actually impacting any of the system, starting from the lowest environment first and then moving to the production environment. So once we are done with this step, the execution of resilience strategy, and we have attacked a specific component of our environment, Next step is to determine how much the chaos matrices deviated from control group to the experimental group. That will help us in calculating the blast radius out of it. And once we have the blast radius, lastly, we minimize the blast radius. So we infer the issues within the system and try to mitigate them. And once we have the reduced blast radius, after fixing the things, we pick the next application, follow the suit till we are not sure that a customer till we are sure that customer will never face these kind of disruption again in their, at least for their defined parameters which we defined in the resilience strategy. So this is how DevOps helps chaos engineering.
So once we saw how we can integrate our chaos in our CI/CD pipelines, how we can continuously evolve our system. So once we have set up all this chaos engineering for any of our environments, the objective is to continuously test it also. And we need to periodically add more and more tests, because that's how we gain maturity of our system, because our system is evolving. So our attacks also needs to be evolved with that period of time. So after the chaos experiments are validated in your lower environments, it makes much sense to integrate it in your CI/CD pipeline, because as part of your development pipeline, maybe you can push a chaos configuration file or so, and then you can start disruptions in some specific environment. So by automating these chaos tests in the CI/CD pipeline and making it an integral part of your pipeline, you are continuously improving your current system also, and you are also improving your future systems. And when incidents will come up with respect to new releases that might inevitably pop up, you can detect the issues much faster, and you can remediate them with very little or actually no customer impact. And when we talk about automating these chaos experiments with every build, it ensures that we are preventing that drift into the failure, because our systems are evolving continuously. And when we implement this as a part of our pipeline and we are evolving simultaneously, it gives our team to spend more time to build on new things, to concentrate basically on building out new features and services, despite of the fact that they are fixing the existing issues. So that's how it helps in creating more new services and everything. So let's talk about what is a game day. So when we talk about chaos engineering, game day is a very important term that is associated to any chaos engineering experiment. So game day is a term that was coined basically by Jesse Robbins when he was working with Amazon, and one day he was responsible for the availability of the system. So when we talk about game days, they are like your fire drills that happen in every organizations for proactively making you aware how it is going to affect if actually a scenario like fire happens in the organization. So it gives you an opportunity to practice a potentially dangerous scenario in a safe environment. So game day basically tests your companies from your engagements to the incident resolution, involving your multiple teams, multiple environments, and other factors that are involved. So before planning any game day, we need to make sure that we have the right set of people who are available to run these tests, to handle the failures, and then who are available to discuss the outcome of these real-time problems when we are moving them from the lower environment to the higher environment. So when we talk about any game day, it is important to uh, define our targets. So an exact target or targets should be specified where we are planning to run our chaos attacks. So without knowing the exact target, it is not possible to bring in the right people to run and observe any game day. It is important to be well prepared with the logistics for the right day and define proper timelines for which we would be executing the chaos experiments. So usually it lasts from around 2 to 4 hours if we talk about the timelines. It is equally important to set up a brainstorming session where we paint a clear picture of the system architecture and the components that we are about to break, because it is important for everyone to be on the same page when we are going to break something into the system. And once we have the objectives set up, it is time to finally run or bring our steps or the planning that we have done into reality. So tests should be run in an incremental fashion where monitoring the situation is important, validating the system is important, that it is working as expected. And finally, we move on to a new bunch of experiments or the new set of experiments once our existing one is completed. And at the end of the game day, when we come out, we should have certain takeaways to address any gaps that we find in any of our systems. We need to discuss what happened during the experiment, why it happened, and what would be the follow-up actions. So when we talk about it, so even the failed chaos experiments, if we have any, they give us they are a good learning opportunity basically, so that we can plan our next game days in a much better way. And it is a practice that should be adopted incrementally when we are moving from lower environments to our higher environments.
So when we talk about the chaos engineering, the first thing that comes into our mind is how it differs from existing testing methodologies that we use. So when we develop an application, we pass it through various tests that may include the unit testing, the integration testing, or the system testing itself. So with unit testing, we write a unit test case, check the expected behavior of a component that is independent of all other external components. Whereas if we talk about the integration testing, we check the interaction of individual and the interdependent components itself. But even extensive testing does not provide us with a guaranteed error-free system, because this testing only examines some of the predefined scenarios which we have. So the result don't cover the new information about the application, the system behavior, the performance of the application and its properties, etc. So this uncertainty increases with the use of the microservices and scaling up systems also. So whereas if we talk about the chaos engineering, it generate a wide range of wide and you can say unpredictable range of outcome for experimenting on a distributed architecture to build the confidence in the system capability and withstand any kind of turbulent conditions in the production environment itself. So chaos testing is deliberate introduction of failures and maybe the faulty scenarios into our system to understand how the system will react and what could be its side effects. So this type of testing is an effective method to prevent or maybe minimize the outage before they actually impact the system and they actually ultimately impact any kind of business too. So this is how the chaos engineering differs from our general testing. So we have multiple chaos tools available and each of the tool has its own strengths and weaknesses. So some of the strengths works like there are different features, there are different types of attacks, there are different automation support, there are different environment support maybe, and so on, different categories of it. But based on these strengths, we should select a tool which should serve our purpose of testing the in-depth resiliency of that environment. So some of the tools, as you can see, are AWS Fault Injection, Litmus, Chaos Monkey, Chaos Toolkit, Gremlin, Chaos Mesh. So the tools listed here comes with specific set of attacks and specific environment support. However, if we have a specific need to fulfill resilience testing, it is when a tailored made solution can be introduced. Like we in our organization have created a custom solution that provides tailored made feature to customize attacks or combine attacks to create a scenario on any of the environments, be it an on-prem server, be it a cloud server, be it a container port, anything. And it works based on a custom requirement from the client, thereby giving us a more control over the entire chaos setup. So these are some of the tools, and in the next slide we'll be having a demo, a brief demo on one of the tool called Gremlin, as we discussed. So let me share my.
Sorry to interrupt you. Just wanted to give you a heads up that we have 5 minutes left. So probably if you can just quickly wrap up that.
Sure, sure.
Thank you.
Let me share my complete screen. Let me know once I'm able to see my complete screen.
It's visible.
Okay, so this is the main dashboard of Gremlin. We can see that we have 2 active clients. So for the demo purpose, what we have done is we have set up a Kubernetes cluster with 1 master and 2 worker node. And we have deployed an application behind a load balancer. And basically the application is having 2 ports. One is on one of the worker node and the other is on the other worker node. So as you can see, we are um, browsing the URL of the DNS, and you can see it's serving from server 1, and there is one more link I have opened that is serving from server 2. Okay, so what we'll be doing is we'll be going straight away to the attacks. We have different types of attacks available. Like if I select as new attack, we select the infrastructure host. Say we select this one and choose a Gremlin attack. So we have different types of attack related to different categories, be it resource, which consumes the CPU, disk, IO, or memory, state, kills the process, shutdowns the system, and the time travel, and the network attack. So what we'll be doing is we'll be shutting down a specific node to test how our application behaves. And will our application be able to handle the latency if one of the nodes in the cluster goes down? And how will my cluster completely behave if one of the system goes straight away down within some of the second? So straight away start the attack. And we'll go to our load balancers also and check the status of our systems. So now it is about to start the attack. So this is very a simple use case which we were discussing here, but there can be a scenario where in the production environment we can combine different attacks. So we can see a system is out of service, or an instance is out of service, and if we browse the system, we can see it is only handling traffic from one server, only from server 1, and server 2 is down, and still our application is able to handle the traffic in a correct way. So this is all about it. We can combine the different attacks to create different scenarios. And with respect to those scenarios, we can check the different components like availability, redundancy, or the scaling of the system with these tool sets itself. So let me come back to, yeah, over to you, Anupam.
So in the last, I would just like to say that we already saw the demo and there were a couple of questions that I was trying to answer. So yes, we already discussed what are the benefits that chaos engineering would be giving us with respect to our risk mitigation, customer satisfaction. It is offloading the work. If we talk about the IT departments, we are able to um, we are reducing the risk of loss basically by preventing any sort of outages. So it looks very fascinating that we will be breaking the stuff. We will uncover weakness and malfunctions and everything. But not every event would be fruitful for you when we talk about in a specific needs. So because it takes a lot of time and money also when you are setting up any kiosk things, right? So you sometimes companies just waste up a lot of time in just running these kiosk experiments. So I just wanted to conclude by saying that it is very crucial that how you are implementing any of your chaos experiments, and we should not over-promise the benefits of chaos engineering at the same time. So it is tempting, of course, because we are adopting a new technique, new technologies, and sometimes we may get overexcited about the potential benefits. But we need to keep in mind that it has its downsides and limitations also. And if anything goes wrong, then it can actually impact your application and your entire system. Thank you.
So you can paste in your questions over the chat, maybe.
Yeah.
Thanks, Sardan Piyush. Thanks, Sardan Anupam. We have a lot of questions available in chat. So the questions I would like to reiterate over here is like, how do we approach a QoS engineering for a serverless applications?
So for the serverless application, as I told, we have different type of systems availability for these tools. Like Gremlin, as I was demoing, it has an option for installing an agent at the Kubernetes cluster level or the specific pod level itself. So we can install an agent on the cluster and do any kind of attacks with respect to cluster or for a pod, and then do attacks based on those specific pods itself.
Cool, thank you. So we have follow-up question from Rahul, and Rahul has a question like, what are the downsides of implementing chaos engineering?
So like I tried to answer very quickly that it is a new technology, so everyone wants to embrace everything, that it's a new technology, it's a new buzzword, so we should just use it. But yes, like I mentioned, sometimes your organization or your application doesn't fit into that chaos experiment kind of a scenario. So you might just end up, if your planning is not proper, or if you have not analyzed each and everything while creating these chaos experiments, then it may turn into a disaster as well. So whenever you are planning everything, it has to be very precise. You need to keep in mind, because when we talk about any chaos engineering, the first fear that comes to everybody's mind is that it is going to destroy everything in my system. And that's where the people get a lot of anxiety. So in order to reduce that, we need to focus always on the blast radius, that whatever experiments we are trying, they are in small chunks. And always we start from the lower environment and then we are going to the production environment.
Cool. Thanks, Sardan and Anupam, for answering the questions we have. Probably we do have a couple of more questions, but I request them to reach out to Anupam and Piyush, probably on any of the social media networks or probably on LinkedIn. And these people will be able to help you out with all the questions you have. So thank you, Anupam. Thank you, Piyush, for the wonderful sessions. Right, this actually gave a lot of insights on chaos engineering. So thank you so much.
Thanks, everyone. Thanks, Karthik.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you.